Have you ever gone to bed feeling fine, only to wake up to heartbreaking news that someone you knew didn't make it through the night? What if I told you that the quiet habits we overlook after sunset might be silently putting our lives at risk? And most importantly, what if a few small changes before bedtime could protect not only your sleep, but your future? It's a sobering reality faced by many families across America. You see, some of these silent nighttime tragedies didn't have to happen. They weren't caused by rare illnesses or unpredictable accidents, but by everyday bedtime mistakes that many people make without thinking twice. In this video, I'll be sharing 4 powerful, real-life stories of older adults, people just like you, whose nightly routines led to unexpected and devastating outcomes. My purpose isn't to frighten you, but to help you recognize the quiet dangers that often slip under the radar after age 70. Each of these stories carries a meaningful lesson, one that could save your life or the life of someone you love deeply. I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video. By the time we finish, you'll learn the small but essential changes you can make starting tonight. Changes that can help you sleep more safely, live longer, and embrace your golden years with the peace and dignity you deserve. Before we begin, I'd truly appreciate it if you could take a moment to like this video. It helps me continue sharing important lessons about healthy aging. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so now and turn on the bell so you won't miss any future health updates. If you find this video helpful, please comment number 1 below. And if not, feel free to comment number 0. So I know how to improve and create better content for you. Now, let's begin with our first story. Eating too late at night. Mr. Robert Thompson, a 74-year-old widower, lived a peaceful, solitary life in a quiet bungalow in Sarasota, Florida. After losing his beloved wife, Margaret, 5 years earlier, Robert found comfort in his familiar routines. A retired high school math teacher, he spent his mornings tending to his garden, reading the newspaper, and greeting neighbors during their walks. But it was in the evenings that Robert found his rhythm, the calm predictability of dinner, followed by late-night TV and a snack or two. It seemed harmless. Yet, as we'll soon uncover, this nightly habit would set in motion a chain of events that no one expected. Robert's nightly ritual was a comforting one, centered around sports and a hearty dinner that rarely started before 9 p.m. Like clockwork, he'd sink into his favorite recliner, flip on ESPN, and enjoy a generous plate of his favorite dishes: slow-cooked barbecue ribs glazed in a rich, tangy sauce, creamy coleslaw, baked beans, and a tall glass of ice-cold cola to top it off. For Robert, this wasn't just a meal. It was solace. It filled the silence that had lingered ever since Margaret passed. Despite his indulgent dinners, Robert wasn't careless about his health. He took daily walks, maintained a healthy weight, and never missed an annual checkup. His blood pressure was a little high, but manageable with a low-dose prescription. Every now and then, he'd feel a mild burning in his chest after eating, something he brushed off as simple heartburn, quickly relieved with an over-the-counter antacid. In his mind, these meals were a harmless pleasure, a small comfort in a life lived with discipline and routine. What Robert didn't realize was that this seemingly innocent habit was quietly placing a strain on his body, especially his heart and digestive system. Eating large, heavy meals late at night may not raise red flags in the moment, but over time, it can disrupt sleep, elevate blood pressure, and increase the risk of silent complications like acid reflux, aspiration, or even cardiac strain. On a warm April evening in 2025, Robert followed his familiar routine. He had spent the afternoon pruning his tomato plants and watching a close baseball game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox. At around 9:15 p.m., he warmed up a hearty portion of leftover ribs, scooped some creamy macaroni and cheese onto his plate, and opened a fresh can of soda. He ate slowly, enjoying every bite, and leaned back with a satisfied sigh when he finished. By 10:30, drowsiness crept in. He turned off the television, shuffled to his bedroom, and drifted off to sleep without a second thought. But sometime during the early morning hours, his body began to struggle. His breathing grew shallow and labored, and a faint gurgling echoed in the quiet of his room. Robert never woke up. The next morning, when he didn't appear in his garden as he usually did, his neighbor, Mrs. Clara Evans, grew worried. She knocked, waited, and when there was still no response, she called 911. Paramedics arrived to find Robert still in bed, his face calm but lifeless. The heartbreak of that moment is something no family or neighbor should ever have to experience. And yet, it happens more often than we think. The room was still, no signs of distress, no evidence of a struggle, just the heartbreaking image of a man who appeared to have passed peacefully in his sleep. But when the coroner's report arrived a week later, the truth was far more tragic. Robert hadn't died of natural causes. He had suffered from a silent and deadly condition, aspiration caused by severe acid reflux. During the night, stomach acid and partially digested food had surged up his esophagus, entered his airway, and blocked his ability to breathe. It's a condition that can strike without warning, especially during deep sleep, and in Robert's case, it led to fatal suffocation. The report noted that his stomach was still full at the time of death, clear evidence that his late, heavy meal played a pivotal role. For Robert, the danger had been quietly building for years. His consistent habit of eating large portions late at night, paired with his age and an undiagnosed case of gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, had formed the perfect storm. No one saw it coming. Not his neighbors, not even his family. His daughter Emily, who lived in Atlanta, was devastated by the news. Fighting through tears, she shared, "He seemed so healthy. He was always moving, always laughing. I never imagined something as routine as dinner could cost him his life." Those who knew Robert were equally stunned. Mrs. Evans remembered their shared evenings fondly, how he'd call her over for a plate of ribs while they watched baseball together. "He never made a fuss," she said quietly. "Sure, he mentioned heartburn now and then, but who doesn't get that?" The tragedy shook the community. What had seemed like a harmless ritual suddenly took on a haunting significance. It forced everyone to confront a hard truth. Something as common as eating late could turn dangerous, even deadly, especially for older adults. Robert's story shines a light on a critical but often overlooked health risk. The science is clear. Late-night meals can interfere with digestion, slow down stomach emptying, and increase the chances of acid reflux, particularly when lying down too soon afterward. For seniors, whose digestive systems naturally slow with age, this risk becomes even more pronounced. Among older adults, eating close to bedtime poses unique and serious risks. When you lie down with a full stomach, your body is still working hard to digest the food. Normally, gravity helps keep stomach contents where they belong, but once you're horizontal, that support disappears. This shift increases the likelihood of acid reflux, where stomach acid creeps up into the esophagus, causing that burning sensation many know all too well. For some, like Robert, this process can take a dangerous turn. When acid or undigested food makes its way into the airway during sleep, it can lead to aspiration, a blockage that quietly suffocates without warning signs. And sadly, this risk is far more common in older adults than many realize. As we grow older, the body's digestive system begins to slow. The lower esophageal sphincter, the muscle that keeps stomach acid from rising, tends to weaken with age. At the same time, conditions like gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, become increasingly prevalent. Studies show that up to 20% of people over 65 are affected, often without even knowing it. Robert's meals, rich, heavy, and late, created the perfect storm. Spicy or fatty foods, like his cherished barbecue, and carbonated beverages, such as the cold soda he sipped each night, increase stomach acid and pressure. These factors all heighten the chances of reflux, especially when followed by lying down too soon. In Robert's case, the danger was compounded by the fact that his GERD had never been diagnosed. His symptoms, occasional heartburn, a bit of discomfort, were brushed off as normal aging. When he popped a quick antacid, the burning faded, but the underlying issue continued to build. Over time, this chronic acid exposure can silently damage the lining of the esophagus, increasing the risk of aspiration, scarring, or even esophageal cancer. It's a harsh truth that many seniors overlook. Those subtle signals your body gives you after a meal, the tightness in the chest, the sour taste in the back of your throat, are more than just minor annoyances. They could be warning signs of something much more serious. Robert's passing was a tragedy, but one that could have been prevented. His story offers a sobering yet powerful reminder. One late-night meal might feel comforting in the moment, but it could set off a chain of events with irreversible consequences. Especially for seniors, eating late isn't just a bad habit. It can be a life-threatening one. The discomfort from nighttime reflux isn't just irritating. It can be dangerous, even life-threatening. But here's the good news. With just a few mindful adjustments, you can dramatically lower the risk. Start by timing your meals carefully. Aim to finish your final meal or snack at least 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. So, if your usual bedtime is around 10 p.m., try to eat no later than 6 or 7 p.m. This window gives your stomach time to empty, reducing the chances of reflux while you're lying down. What you eat matters just as much as when you eat. In the evenings, avoid heavy, fatty, or spicy dishes. Choose lighter, easier to digest foods, such as grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, or a small portion of brown rice. Remember Robert's beloved barbecue ribs, rich in fat and smothered in sugary sauce? They might have been comforting, but they were a poor choice for a late meal, especially for someone over 70. Certain foods and drinks are known reflux triggers. Carbonated sodas, citrus fruits, tomatoes, chocolate, and alcohol can all increase stomach acid. Robert's nightly soda may have seemed innocent enough, but it likely added to his acid production, tipping the balance against him. Also, pay close attention to what you do after dinner. Lying back or reclining right after a meal can interfere with digestion and promote reflux. Try staying upright. Perhaps enjoy a light walk around the house, or sit up and read for a while. Robert's habit of leaning back in his recliner immediately after dinner unknowingly increased his risk. Another simple yet powerful change? Elevate your head during sleep. A wedge pillow or raising the head of your bed by 6 to 8 inches can help keep acid where it belongs, in your stomach. This small shift in sleeping posture could have made all the difference for Robert. Don't ignore warning signs. Persistent heartburn, a chronic cough, difficulty swallowing, or a sour taste in your mouth could all be symptoms of GERD. Talk to your doctor. They may recommend diagnostic tests, such as an endoscopy, to check the health of your esophagus and determine the best course of action. Managing underlying health conditions is also key. Issues like obesity, hiatal hernias, or even the side effects of certain medications can worsen reflux symptoms. Discuss these possibilities with your healthcare provider to get a complete picture of your risks. Robert's story is more than a cautionary tale. It's a wake-up call. His enjoyment of late-night barbecue wasn't the problem by itself. It was the lack of awareness about how that habit interacted with his age, his physiology, and his hidden condition that ultimately led to tragedy. But this outcome isn't inevitable. By making small, thoughtful changes to how and when you eat, you can protect yourself from the same fate. Don't let a simple, preventable mistake steal precious years from your life, especially when the solution is within reach. Take charge of your tomorrows, starting tonight. These lessons aren't just for reflection. They're a call to action. By making a few intentional choices, you can safeguard your evenings and reclaim peaceful, restorative sleep. If you're still here watching, and these lessons are resonating with you, I invite you to comment number 2 below to let me know you're with me through this journey. Your time means a lot. Let's move to our second silent danger, taking sleeping pills without professional guidance. Betty Thompson, a 78-year-old widow living in a quiet town in Texas, was the kind of woman people admired. Strong, determined, and deeply devoted to her family, Betty had spent over 5 decades by her husband's side. But when he passed away, everything changed. The once lively hum of their home faded into a silence that stretched through the nights like an unwelcome guest. Grief cast a heavy shadow, and with it came sleeplessness. Though her days remained structured, caring for her garden, attending church, and chatting with friends, her nights were filled with tossing, turning, and staring into the darkness. Still, Betty was proud. She didn't want to worry her grown children. She told herself she could handle it, just like she had with every other challenge in her life. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, Betty passed by the pharmacy aisle and noticed a shelf of over-the-counter sleep aids. The bright packaging promised safe, non-habit-forming relief for occasional sleeplessness. The idea of finally getting a full night's rest felt like hope bottled up. She quietly bought a small container without saying a word to the pharmacist or her doctor. That night, she followed the label and took 1 tablet containing diphenhydramine, a common antihistamine often sold as a sleep aid. It worked, at least a little. For the first time in weeks, she drifted off into slumber for a few hours. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. And for Betty, that felt like a small victory. But the comfort was short-lived. Within just a week, that 1 pill didn't seem to do the trick anymore. Frustrated and desperate for rest, Betty began taking 2 pills each night. She thought, what harm could it do? It's over the counter, right? What she didn't realize was that diphenhydramine can be deceptively risky for seniors. Though available without a prescription, it isn't harmless, especially in larger doses or when used regularly. The aging body processes drugs differently, and in Betty's case, she had undiagnosed high blood pressure, a condition that could silently clash with the sedative's effects. To her, it seemed like a minor decision, one that didn't require consultation. But inside her body, things were beginning to unravel. To Betty, the sleeping pill seemed innocent, just a quick fix, not something serious enough to involve her doctor. It was available over the counter, after all. Surely, it couldn't be dangerous. As the months passed, Betty's dependence on the pills quietly deepened. She never told her children during their weekly phone calls. She kept the tone light, masking her growing fatigue with cheerful small talk. And during her occasional doctor visits, she avoided mentioning anything about her sleep troubles or the medication she had been taking nightly. Her kids, caught up in the busyness of their own lives, missed the subtle signs, the slower pace in her voice, the weariness she disguised with polite laughter. Gradually, Betty's emotional and physical isolation became more profound. Alone in her home, her struggle remained hidden, tucked behind closed doors and a brave face. Then, one chilly morning in early spring, everything changed. Her daughter Sarah decided to surprise her with an early visit. But when she arrived, she was met with a terrifying sight. Betty lying motionless in bed, barely conscious, her breathing shallow and irregular. Panic surged as Sarah dialed 911. Paramedics arrived swiftly, transporting Betty to the nearest hospital where doctors fought to stabilize her fragile condition. After extensive testing, the diagnosis came like a thunderclap. Betty was suffering from respiratory depression, a critical and often fatal reaction where breathing slows to dangerously low levels. The culprit? An overdose of the very over-the-counter sleep aid she had been taking for months. Diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in her sleep medication, had suppressed her central nervous system. For a younger person, the body might have handled it better. But in Betty's case, An older adult with untreated high blood pressure and a weakened cardiovascular system, the risk was much higher. Her heart and lungs were already under strain. The drug tipped the scale too far. Despite the medical team's best efforts, her condition deteriorated over the next 48 hours. Surrounded by family who were only beginning to understand the depth of her silent struggle, Betty passed away peacefully in the hospital. Her death left her children devastated, drowning in grief and guilt. How could something so common, so easily purchased, lead to such a heartbreaking outcome? Why hadn't she told them? Why didn't they see it sooner? The doctors explained what many don't realize. Over-the-counter doesn't mean risk-free. Especially for older adults, medications like diphenhydramine can carry significant dangers when taken frequently or without supervision. In Betty's case, a well-intentioned search for rest became a tragic mistake that no one saw coming. Older adults like Betty are especially vulnerable to the side effects of medications such as diphenhydramine. As we age, our bodies metabolize drugs more slowly, allowing active ingredients to linger longer in the system. When combined with chronic conditions, whether diagnosed or silently progressing, such as high blood pressure or heart disease, the risks are magnified. Diphenhydramine, while often seen as harmless, can lead to serious complications in seniors. It may cause confusion, dizziness, or even episodes of delirium. In higher doses, it can suppress vital functions, slowing breathing, lowering heart rate, and straining organs already working harder with age. Betty's gradual increase in dosage, paired with her untreated medical conditions, created a perfect storm, one that slowly built until it became life-threatening. Her story is not just tragic, it's deeply instructive. Betty was not reckless. She was grieving, lonely, and simply looking for relief. But her quiet suffering and reliance on an over-the-counter solution, without guidance, led to a loss that could have been prevented. Had she reached out to her doctor, safer options could have been explored. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, for example, has been shown to be highly effective in managing sleep difficulties without medication. Or perhaps a gentle, closely monitored prescription tailored to her age, body, and medical profile would have been considered. Even a brief conversation with her pharmacist might have revealed the red flags associated with diphenhydramine in seniors. Betty's experience leaves behind powerful lessons, ones that every older adult and their loved ones need to hear and remember. First, never suffer in silence. Grief, insomnia, anxiety, these are not weaknesses, and they deserve to be talked about openly. Speaking up, asking for help, is not a burden to your family or doctor. It's an act of self-care, and often, survival. Second, avoid self-medicating without professional input. Just because a medication is sold over the counter doesn't mean it's safe for everyone. In fact, many commonly used drugs, when taken without oversight, can have unintended and dangerous consequences, especially as we grow older. Lastly, involve your healthcare providers. Before starting any new medication, whether it's a sleep aid, a pain reliever, or a supplement, check with your doctor or pharmacist. Your health history matters, and what works for one person might be harmful to another. Let Betty's story be a wake-up call, one rooted in compassion, not fear. With the right support and guidance, older adults can navigate grief, manage sleep challenges, and live with greater peace and safety. A qualified healthcare professional is your most reliable ally when it comes to navigating the complex world of medications. They can evaluate your overall health condition, assess for drug interactions, and guide you towards safer, more effective solutions tailored to your age and needs. It's essential to recognize how aging impacts the way our bodies respond to medications. As we grow older, our metabolism slows down, liver and kidney functions may decline, and the body's ability to clear substances becomes less efficient. This makes seniors more susceptible to side effects, even from medications that once seemed benign. Conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease further complicate how the body reacts, making medical oversight absolutely crucial. But medical guidance isn't the only protective factor. Connection matters just as much. Staying connected with family and friends can be a silent safeguard. Those closest to us often notice subtle changes in mood, behavior, or physical health that we ourselves might overlook. A regular phone call, a weekend visit, or a simple check-in can make a profound difference. Sometimes, it's during these casual conversations that hidden struggles, like insomnia, loneliness, or reliance on medications, are gently brought to light. Betty's story serves as a powerful call to action. No older adult should navigate sleepless nights, emotional grief, or health confusion in isolation. And no one should assume that a pill picked off a pharmacy shelf is automatically safe. Medications, even over-the-counter ones, must be taken seriously, especially as we age. Speaking up, asking questions, and seeking medical guidance is not a burden. It's a form of self-respect and a way of honoring your health and future. Betty's memory continues to echo an important lesson. Prioritize open communication and place your trust in professional care, particularly when life feels overwhelming or uncertain. If you're still watching this video and finding these lessons helpful, please comment number 3 below so I know you're still with me on this journey. Thank you sincerely for your valuable time. Frank had always been meticulous about his health. In the early years after his hypertension diagnosis, he made it a priority to check his blood pressure every morning and night, carefully jotting down each reading in a small spiral notebook he kept on the nightstand. At first, it became part of his daily rhythm, almost like brushing his teeth or locking the door. But as time passed and he continued to feel fine, that sense of urgency gradually faded. The nightly checks, once a non-negotiable habit, started to feel tedious. "I'm tired, and I feel okay," he'd often say to his wife Ellen as he settled under the covers. Eventually, the blood pressure monitor, a quiet guardian that had once stood faithfully beside his bed, was moved to the corner of the room, slowly gathering dust. Then came a crisp autumn day in 2024. The air was cool, the trees dressed in brilliant reds and golds. Feeling energized, Frank decided to take a longer walk than usual through the neighborhood park. He strolled nearly 2 miles, far more than his typical loop, and returned home both proud and a bit more winded than expected. He chalked up the fatigue to a bit of overexertion, had a light dinner, and later curled up on the couch to watch a classic movie with Ellen. As bedtime approached, Frank once again skipped his blood pressure check. "I'll do it in the morning," he murmured, brushing off Ellen's gentle reminder. He gave her a kiss goodnight and drifted off to sleep, unaware of what was quietly unfolding inside his body. When morning came, something was off. Ellen stirred, surprised that Frank hadn't already made coffee or stepped out into the garden. The eerie stillness sent a chill down her spine. She called his name, no answer. Rushing to the bedroom, she found Frank lying still, his chest unmoving. Panic took over as she dialed 911, her voice trembling. Paramedics arrived swiftly, but their efforts were in vain. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed what Ellen feared most. Frank had suffered a massive stroke in his sleep. The cause? Likely a sudden, undetected spike in his blood pressure. Because it happened overnight and wasn't caught in time, the damage was irreversible. As Ellen sat beside her children in shock and sorrow, her eyes couldn't help but land on the blood pressure monitor, still in the bedroom. The cuff was neatly folded, the screen dark, untouched. That small machine, just a few feet from Frank's bed, might have held a warning sign. A simple reading the night before could have shown a dangerous elevation, one that might have prompted action and possibly saved his life. That one skipped check could have been the red flag that prompted immediate action, perhaps even saved his life. The heartbreaking reality is that high blood pressure, often dubbed the silent killer, doesn't usually come with dramatic warning signs. It can quietly damage the heart, arteries, kidneys, and brain long before symptoms appear. According to the American Heart Association, nearly half of adults in the United States have hypertension, and many either don't know it or don't manage it properly. One lesser-known but crucial aspect of managing blood pressure is nighttime monitoring. In healthy individuals, blood pressure typically dips during sleep, a normal and beneficial phenomenon known as nocturnal dipping. But for many older adults with hypertension, this dip may not occur. In fact, their blood pressure can stay high or even rise during the night, a condition known as nocturnal hypertension. That's when the real danger lurks, when the body is supposed to be resting, yet silently struggling. Why does this matter so much? Because nighttime is when many cardiovascular events, like strokes and heart attacks, tend to occur. And if someone's blood pressure is spiking while they're asleep, without any symptoms, they won't know until it's too late. For seniors like Frank, the risk is even greater. Age-related changes in blood vessels, reduced physical activity, or coexisting conditions like diabetes or sleep apnea all contribute to an increased likelihood of nocturnal hypertension. That's why regular nighttime monitoring is so important. A single elevated reading before bed could alert a person or their doctor to a potentially dangerous pattern. It might trigger a medication adjustment, a lifestyle intervention, or even a necessary doctor's visit. Fortunately, home blood pressure monitors are now affordable, easy to use, and widely available. They've become a practical and potentially life-saving tool for older adults. Yet, as we saw in Frank's story, many people start out diligent and then slowly drift away from the habit. Why? Often because they feel okay. But feeling okay doesn't always mean being okay. That false sense of wellness can lead to dangerous complacency. Frank had no pain, no headaches, no dizziness, and yet his blood pressure was quietly building toward a fatal stroke. That feeling of lightheadedness Frank experienced after his walk wasn't just a passing discomfort. It was a warning his body tried to send, but he chose to ignore. Skipping his nightly blood pressure check meant missing a crucial opportunity to detect a possible spike or irregularity. What many people don't realize is that nighttime readings can often reveal hidden patterns that remain undetected during daytime measurements. Without that evening data, Frank had nothing to alert his doctor to what was brewing in the hours before his stroke. Over time, Frank's once consistent monitoring routine faded. At first, he followed the instructions carefully, recording his readings diligently. But as he began to feel fine, he let the habit slip. The nightly check became optional, then occasional, and eventually forgotten. It's a common story. When the numbers seem stable, the routine starts to feel unnecessary, until it's too late. Had Frank kept a consistent schedule, perhaps checking at the same time every evening, that information might have told a very different story. Another factor often overlooked is the impact of lifestyle on blood pressure fluctuations. Frank's long walk that autumn day, while generally healthy, may have temporarily increased his blood pressure. Physical exertion, even when beneficial, can elevate readings, especially if combined with mild dehydration or suboptimal medication management. If Frank had taken his blood pressure that evening, he might have seen a concerning number and taken action. That small step could have changed the outcome. So, what's the lesson here? Why do these nighttime checks matter so much, especially after age 70? Because early detection can save lives. Just one elevated reading before bed, say anything consistently over 140/90 mmHg, can be a red flag, prompting a call to your doctor or even an urgent visit to the hospital. It might be the only clue that something serious is going on before a stroke, heart attack, or other complication occurs. It also helps track trends over time. Regular readings build a record that doctors can use to fine-tune your care, adjusting medications, recommending lifestyle changes, or catching issues before they become emergencies. This kind of monitoring doesn't just provide data, it empowers you to take charge of your health. And perhaps, most importantly, it protects you during the most vulnerable hours, when you're asleep and unable to respond to your body's subtle distress signals. Frank's story is a powerful reminder that even one missed check can have life-altering consequences. Most strokes and heart attacks occur in the early morning hours, when blood pressure tends to surge naturally. It's during these quiet hours of rest, when we're most vulnerable and least likely to notice symptoms, that danger can silently strike. That's why checking your blood pressure before bed isn't just a good habit. It's a potentially life-saving one. It gives you a chance to spot risks before you sleep, rather than waking up, or not waking up at all, to consequences that could have been avoided. So how can you make nightly blood pressure monitoring a reliable part of your routine and protect yourself from the fate that Frank tragically met? Start with convenience. Keep your blood pressure monitor somewhere visible and easy to reach, like your nightstand or bathroom counter. Seeing it there each night serves as a gentle nudge, a reminder to take that small, important step. Then, set a consistent routine. Pair your blood pressure check with another bedtime ritual, like brushing your teeth, changing into your pajamas, or reading a few pages of a book. When the new habit piggybacks on something familiar, it's far easier to maintain without thinking twice. Don't just take the reading. Record it. Use a notebook, a smartphone app, or a digital monitor with memory storage to track your numbers over time. That data can be incredibly valuable for your doctor, offering insights that quick clinic visits may miss. A single high reading might not mean much on its own, but a pattern over several weeks can speak volumes. Involve your family. Sometimes we all need a little accountability. Ask a loved one, your spouse, a child, or a caregiver, to remind you or even check their pressure alongside you. It can become a shared routine that strengthens not only your health, but your bond as well. Stay informed. Know your target blood pressure, generally below 120/80 mmHg for most adults, though this may differ based on your age or other conditions. Understand why monitoring matters and what the consequences of skipping checks could be. Knowledge creates motivation. And finally, ensure your tools are reliable. Check the batteries in your monitor. If your device is outdated or inaccurate, it's time to upgrade. Invest in a model validated by your doctor, one that you can trust with your life. Frank's story is a deeply painful reminder that something as small as a nightly check can carry life-altering weight. His family now lives with not just grief, but the lingering what-ifs. What if he had checked that night? What if someone had reminded him? What if the monitor on the nightstand hadn't sat unused? If you live with hypertension, or even suspect you might, committing to a few minutes of nightly monitoring is one of the simplest, most impactful steps you can take. It requires almost no effort, but the return could be enormous. More time, more memories, more mornings spent with those you love. If you or someone you love is living with high blood pressure, let Frank's story serve as a powerful reminder. It only takes a few minutes each evening to perform a simple check that could mean the difference between life and loss. Dust off that blood pressure monitor, place it where you'll see it, and make this small step a non-negotiable part of your nighttime routine. Your heart will thank you. So will your brain. And more importantly, so will your family, because you've chosen to protect your health and stay present for them. If you're still with me and finding these lessons valuable, please comment the number 4 below. That helps me know you're engaged and walking this journey with me. Thank you for your time and attention. Now, let's talk about another silent threat many seniors overlook: not staying warm enough during cold nights. Margaret Thompson, an 80-year-old widow from a quiet Northern California neighborhood, had always prided herself on her independence. Her quaint, one-story home was filled with warmth, not just from the soft yellow light of her lamps or the handmade quilts draped over her couch, but from the life she had built inside those walls. Family photos lined the shelves, each frame telling a story of laughter, love, and decades of memories. This house was more than a home, it was her haven. Margaret had a habit she never gave up, even as she aged: She liked to sleep with her bedroom window cracked open, even on cooler nights. "I need the fresh air to sleep well," she would say with a gentle smile, brushing off her son David's concerns. To her, that faint breeze was more than a preference. It was a ritual that reminded her of childhood nights on her family's farm, where crisp, earthy air lulled her to sleep. But as the years passed, David grew increasingly uneasy. He knew that with age, the body's ability to regulate temperature diminishes. Seniors often feel warm even when their core temperature is dropping to dangerous levels. But no matter how often he gently brought it up, Margaret would just chuckle, insisting, "I'm just fine." On one seemingly harmless spring evening in March of 2025, Margaret followed her routine as usual. She brewed a small cup of chamomile tea, turned the pages of her favorite historical novel, and then tucked herself into bed. The air outside was crisp, but not freezing. The forecast had mentioned a cool drop in temperature overnight, but nothing extreme. Margaret pulled her light cotton blanket up to her chin, confident that she'd sleep as peacefully as always. But that night, something changed. The air that evening may have felt crisp, but it wasn't dangerously cold, at least not at first. The forecast had mentioned temperatures dipping into the low 40s Fahrenheit, which didn't raise any alarm for Margaret. As she had done countless times before, she left her bedroom window slightly cracked open, dressed only in her light flannel pajamas. She didn't think to add socks, a sweater, or even an extra blanket. In her mind, if she got cold, she'd feel it and adjust. After all, hadn't she always done just that? But that night, nature had other plans. A sudden cold front swept through Northern California, dropping temperatures swiftly to the mid-30s. A biting wind slipped through her open window, chilling the air that filled her bedroom. The breeze she once cherished now became an unseen threat, creeping in and stealing warmth from her body hour by hour. Margaret's aging body, like that of many older adults, was no longer equipped to handle such conditions. As we grow older, we naturally lose muscle mass, and our metabolism slows. These changes reduce the body's ability to regulate temperature. Older adults also have a weaker ability to sense cold and don't shiver as effectively, a critical mechanism our bodies use to generate heat. As the hours passed, the cool air surrounded her like a silent blanket of ice. Slowly, her core body temperature began to fall, a dangerous condition known as hypothermia. Her hands and feet turned icy. Her breathing grew shallow. Her heart rate slowed, and without even realizing what was happening, Margaret began to slip into unconsciousness. She couldn't call out for help. Her body, once so strong and capable, was quietly shutting down. Around 7 o'clock a.m., her son David arrived as he did most mornings to check in. The moment he stepped into the house, a chill ran through him, not just from the cold air, but from the eerie stillness that met him. Something felt off. As he walked toward her bedroom, the icy draft from the hallway deepened his worry. When he opened the door and saw her lying there motionless, the scene hit him like a wave. Her lips were pale, her skin cold and clammy, and the thin blanket barely covered her. The open window whispered a grim explanation. Panicked, David rushed to her side, wrapping her in every blanket he could find. He dialed 911 with trembling hands, pleading for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes and quickly recognized the signs of severe hypothermia. They moved fast, administering warm IV fluids and rushing her to the hospital, hoping it wasn't too late. At the hospital, the medical team sprang into action, working around the clock to stabilize Margaret in the intensive care unit. Initial tests confirmed what paramedics had feared. Her body temperature had dropped to dangerously low levels. The hypothermia had not only slowed her heart rate, but also triggered arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat that placed even more pressure on her aging cardiovascular system. Though she had previously managed a mild heart condition without much trouble, the cold had pushed her heart to its limit. And it wasn't just her heart. The doctors noted her kidneys were showing signs of distress as well, a direct result of the body's attempt to preserve core heat by restricting blood flow to the extremities. What began as a quiet night under a light blanket had escalated into a full-blown medical crisis. For the next 4 weeks, Margaret remained in the hospital, undergoing a series of treatments aimed at restoring her heart rhythm, managing her electrolytes, and reversing the damage from prolonged exposure to the cold. The ordeal left her physically weakened, and she had to undergo physical therapy just to regain the strength to walk again. Her once independent life now required the help of others, and her recovery was slow and exhausting. Throughout her hospitalization, her son David and other family members rarely left her side. They stayed with her day and night, supporting her, comforting her, and quietly wrestling with the emotional weight of what had nearly happened. David later opened up to Margaret's care team, his voice heavy with emotion. "Mom always said she didn't feel cold, so we assumed she was fine. But now I realize, it's not about what she felt, it's about what her body was silently enduring. That window, her beloved habit, almost took her from us. Something so small, so routine, nearly cost us everything." That brush with tragedy changed him. David has since become a vocal advocate for educating others about hypothermia risks in older adults. He emphasizes that even in places like California, where winters seem mild, the danger is real. Elderly individuals are uniquely vulnerable to cold temperatures due to several age-related factors: reduced body fat, slower circulation, and decreased awareness of temperature changes. Medications such as beta blockers, sedatives, or even sleeping pills can further reduce the body's ability to respond to cold by suppressing natural warming mechanisms like shivering, bundling up with warm layers, adding thicker blankets, closing windows during colder nights, and maintaining an indoor temperature of at least 68 degrees. May sound simple, but these are the very actions that can make the difference between comfort and crisis. For Margaret, these adjustments have now become a part of her new nightly ritual. Since returning home from the hospital, she's made peace with keeping the window shut when temperatures dip. She now uses a small space heater in her bedroom and slips on cozy socks and a warm sweater before crawling into bed. Practical changes she jokingly refers to as David's new house rules. That brush with danger wasn't just a lesson, it was a turning point. Margaret's near tragedy is a powerful reminder that staying warm isn't simply about feeling cozy. For older adults, it's about survival. Cold can creep in unnoticed, and the body's ability to respond may be muted by age, health conditions, or medications. And when that happens, what feels like a mild night can suddenly become life-threatening. That's why families and caregivers must remain vigilant, especially during colder months. It's not enough to assume our loved ones are fine just because they say they're not cold. A simple touch on the hand, a check-in to ensure the room is heated properly, or gently encouraging warmer clothing can go a long way. Even inside the home, temperature regulation matters. The goal is prevention, not reaction. For Margaret and David, that early spring night will never be forgotten. It was more than a scare. It was a wake-up call, one that they now share with others in the hope that no other family will have to face what they did. We've just walked together through 4 powerful real-life stories. They might feel surprisingly familiar. These weren't dramatic tales made for television or fiction. They were about everyday people. People like your neighbor, your parent, your spouse, or even you. And the tragedies they endured weren't due to recklessness, but to small, overlooked habits that seemed harmless at the time. That's why this message matters so deeply. So now I ask you, what struck a chord with you today? Was it Robert, who didn't survive the night after his usual late dinner? Or Betty, whose silent battle with sleeplessness led her to overuse over-the-counter sleep aids? Maybe it was Frank, who simply skipped his blood pressure check one night too many. Or perhaps Margaret, who underestimated a chilly breeze and almost paid the ultimate price. Each of these stories is more than a warning. They're a call to awareness, a call to understand that with age comes not just wisdom, but a greater duty to care for our bodies, our routines, and our environment. What didn't matter much at 40 could be life-altering at 70. Death after 70 isn't always sudden. It's often preceded by small, avoidable habits. That's why we invite you to take a moment and reflect. What's one thing you've learned from this video that you're going to start applying tonight? Will you choose to eat dinner a little earlier? Maybe you'll have that long overdue conversation with your doctor about sleep medications. Or perhaps you'll finally get back into the habit of checking your blood pressure before bed. Even something as simple as adding an extra blanket on a chilly night. Each of these small decisions can make a big difference. And if you're watching this not just for yourself, but for someone you deeply care about, a parent, a grandparent, or a cherished friend, don't keep this information to yourself. Share the video with them. It might just be the most meaningful and protective act of love you offer today. If something in this video made you pause, opened your eyes, or gave you a moment of realization, please leave a comment below. Let us know what struck a chord with you. Your insight might inspire someone else to take action too. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your community, and subscribe to our channel. At Healthy Aging Blueprint, we're committed to bringing you real, honest, and life-saving guidance designed especially for seniors. Because everyone deserves the opportunity to grow older with dignity, with clarity, and with confidence. Until we meet again, take good care of yourself. Sleep safely. And always remember, sometimes the smallest change can lead to the greatest protection. Wishing you continued health, happiness, peace, and please don't forget to subscribe to Healthy Aging Blueprint.